Welcome to Feed the Blender.
All right. Welcome to another episode of Feed the Blender. Boys, it's good to be back here. I'll tell you what, I don't know how I'm showing my face after that performance on Christmas Day. I went 0-5 on my predictions.
It's a tough break. I lost all my bets on Christmas Day, so I'm right there with you.
Yeah, this is why I don't bet on sports. I don't have a good track record of being correct. I do want to give a quick shout out to Double D holding it down on the last two episodes, coming in late notice, basically putting up a performance of the lifetime 2 weeks in a row. Comes in and honestly, the transition was so smooth. It seemed like he had been breaking down divisions with us in early summer. Like he was just a natural. So shout out to that man. Christmas Day game was awesome with him. We had a blast. Talked a lot of shit to Denver fans. Watched Aaron Gordon just obliterate Landry Shamet.
Dunk of
Um,
the
yeah, I mean, very well could be. But yeah, without further ado, boys, welcome back. It's been a couple of weeks here. How are we feeling?
Feeling
we're
good.
we're here. We're doing what we can. So we've
With
made it
that,
this.
with that, it's been a super crazy last, I don't know, 3 weeks here of NBA basketball. Um, Want to start out right out of the gate. Luca has been just on a tear.
Yes.
Him and Christian Wood have like kind of finally figured out their chemistry stuff, and Wood's been putting up good numbers here, and they're on a 7 game winning streak. They're fourth in the West right now at 22-16. I'm just gonna read out some of Luca's numbers from this stretch here. Uh, 39 points in the most recent game against Houston, 51 points against San Antonio, 35 against Houston, 60 against the Knicks, including a overtime sending tip in off of a missed free throw at the end of regulation, and then the 32 against the Lakers. Luca has once again put his team on his back, and they're right now in great position considering all the talk around their team literally 7 games ago. They were in panic mode, absolute panic mode, sitting at 15-16, and they've just gone on this run. And yeah, I mean, he's been absolutely brilliant to watch. And some of these percentages from the field, I mean, like 68% in that 60-point game from the field, like that's just bonkers. The man can't be stopped.
No, and even to like elaborate a little bit, the game before, because I mean they played Houston twice in the last 2 weeks, but before the Laker game, dude, he put up 50 on Houston. Like he's just been on an absolute tear. Looking at his last 10 games, he's averaging 37.4 points, 9.4 assists, and 9.1 steals. Like
MVP numbers right there. And
he's
correct me if I'm wrong. He is in a tie right now with Joel Embiid for league leader in points per game.
I think you're correct.
So, I mean, if they continue this, he should be number one in the MVP discussion because there's not a guy with a better stat line nor a bigger impact on their team and their team's winning. So it'd be hard to give the MVP award to someone else not named Luka Doncic.
Yeah, I agree. I had him at the and when we made all of our predictions and stuff like that, I had him as my front runner for MVP, which I know a
Yeah,
lot
that's
of
a
people
hot
are
take.
saying that. I mean, it's not that hot of a take because
I was being sarcastic.
okay, sure.
I
Uh,
believe I also took Luka as my MVP preseason. So
realistically. All right, let's.
yeah, he's been brilliant. Team right there.
He's outright beating Embiid right now by almost a full point in points per game right now,
Okay.
which is wild.
Yeah. And we'll touch on Embiid later because he has been, oh my God, has he been awesome too.
Yeah, and Philly's finally starting to like look good again as they've gotten healthier here. It'll be really interesting to see what happens with Tyrese Maxey coming back into the lineup because he's been banged up. He hasn't played in what, 4 weeks, maybe 6 at this point. And D'Anthony Melton's been balling.
Both Melton and Shake Milton, both guys have been great. And D'Anthony Melton, yeah, his defense in that starting lineup has been brilliant. You can almost afford to not start PJ Tucker and just have Melton play the 4 and run or have Tobias Harris play the 4, Melton play the 3, and have basically like a 5-out kind of offense when needed, playing against like Boston, playing against Milwaukee, like these teams that space the floor really well. Philly all of a sudden has a really good, strong counter lineup for that.
Yeah, it'll be cool to see if they can put something like that together. Because I mean, PJ Tucker hasn't been at all what Miami got out of him, and I mean even going a year back to Milwaukee, like he's at this point he's barely even taking shots.
He's not taking any. He's on the floor right now to set screens, get offensive rebounds, and guard the best guy on the other team. I mean, his role in Philly is, like you said, definitely a little.
I don't think what they were expecting.
Yeah. Which I mean, that could be an age thing. I think he's like 38 or 39. Like he's up there.
Yeah, but they signed him for like 2 years.
Yeah, and they gave him a good amount of money. But yeah, Philly's 8-2 in their last 10. That's good for 5th in the East right now, 22-14. Embiid's averaging 33.5 points per game, 9.8 rebounds, and 4.6 assists. Harden's averaging 22 points a game, 6 boards, and 11 assists. Like they're getting great output from their 2 stars. And as you touched on, Tyrese is coming back. We'll see what that kind of does because Tyrese is a different kind of ball player than Harden is. Harden's really slow paced, methodical. I'm going to break you down off the dribble, whereas Tyrese is just super fast, gets to the basket, gets downhill, gets to his spots. Like it'll be interesting to see if they can kind of figure out their chemistry because in the beginning of the year, that was definitely a problem when Tyrese was healthy.
Yeah. It'll be an interesting caveat to see how they reintegrate him back into the offense and things like that. So
yeah, but everyone's happy in Philly right now. They look really good. Keeping it in the East, I feel like we can't go much further without talking about the biggest elephant in the room, quite possibly of our lifetimes. D Mitch's 71-point night.
Yeah.
71, 8, and 11 in an overtime win against the Bulls. 7 for 15 from 3. Cleveland's 4th in the East right now, and if Garland wasn't healthy, Evan Mobley hasn't been healthy with that ankle problem. Like they're right in position right now, and with the Bucks and the Celtics struggling, and we'll get to those 2 teams. But with those 2 teams struggling, I mean, Cleveland can make a case for home court at least through 2 rounds.
Yeah, they're. I mean, the entire realistically the top 4 in the East are all within 2 games at most, being Cleveland at the 4 spot.
It's the top 5 because Philly's right at that 5 spot.
Yeah, Philly's 3 games back right now.
Yeah.
D Mitch is who we thought he was. He's very good.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I kind of live watched the back end of that game.
That was awesome.
Yeah, I think we turned it on with about like 3.5, 4 minutes left. Bulls were up 6. Mitchell had 55 at that point. So to watch him in realistically 10 minutes, put up another 16 is insane.
Yeah, he had something. He had like over 50 in the second half alone.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised because he had I think he had 16 in the fourth alone when we turned it on.
Yeah,
And he single-handedly erased that 6-point deficit. The Bulls still scored a few baskets in there too.
yeah.
So
DeRozan was doing everything he could to keep the Bulls in it.
yeah,
Which shout out to him, 44-point game. That's nothing to sneeze at.
no, no, and I mean the Bulls aren't good right now, so I feel like performances like that out of him are being overlooked.
And
But
not taken advantage of.
yeah,
Yeah, I agree.
we don't need to talk about the Bulls.
Yeah, we can do that on a separate pod. Yeah, Cleveland obviously, like I said, they've had a couple injuries. Their wing depth isn't great still, but they're tough. And Jared Allen's playing like an all-star again. If Donovan Mitchell's going to be this good and this much of a closer on this team, that's a really tough out in the playoffs, and that's a really scary matchup for anyone going up against them.
Yeah, because what do you do? You double him. Okay, fine. He'll dish to Garland, and then Garland's gonna find either Mobley or Allen down low. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or just beat him off the dribble and hit a jumper. It's really unfortunate that they don't have a really good 3-and-D wing
Yeah.
that they can utilize, because I think they potentially could be the best team in the East if they had that in their starting five.
Yeah.
Based off of how Allen's playing, Garland's played well when he hasn't been hurt.
Garland's been great.
And then, shit, you could potentially throw D Mitch in the top 5 conversation for MVP right now too.
Yeah, it's just tough. I mean, who is he leaping over in that conversation?
Not MB or not Luka.
Embiid, not Durant,
Not
not Tatum, not Jokic.
It's tough.
They're going to be good for a long time, especially with how young that core is. I mean, D Mitch is the oldest of those 4 guys, and he's only 26, which is crazy. But yeah, I mean, just absolute shout out to Donovan Mitchell. What a brilliant game, and getting that 11 assists too, 10 in regulation. That's insane. To have that kind of a scoring night and also put up 22 points minimum off of your assists.
It's madness, dude. It's 2K numbers is what it is.
Yeah. Those are NBA Live 2005 numbers right there.
Dude, agreed. Yeah. Good for him. Did you see that the NBA technically, after reviewing, ruled his putback a lane violation off that free throw?
Oh, yeah, it definitely was.
Yeah.
He stepped into the lane, or he left early.
Yeah.
But
are you gonna
those 2-minute reports are so problematic in the NBA right now. And Bulls were citing it, but I understand Billy Donovan being upset about that, because obviously it was a clear violation and they were able to tie it off of that bucket and send it to overtime. So it's
right.
Speaking of another team surging right now, the Golden State Warriors on a nice little 5-game winning streak here without Steph. They've had some pretty big performances from their other 2 scoring guards.
Yeah, Jordan Poole and Klay Thompson have put together a really good stretch of games here. Obviously, Klay's 54-point game here against Atlanta was insane.
I also got to add, quick before you run through those other games, to win that game, our Milwaukee boy, Kevon Looney, with the tip-in game winner in double overtime. You gotta give him some love for that.
Gotta give him the shout out for that. Their win over Portland, 118-112. Poole had 41, but I'm pretty sure that was the game where Klay hit the game winner. And then they beat a Utah team that's been declining. Beat them by 5. Poole had 26.
Still a tough win though, because Utah is still going to play hard.
Yeah, and all of these score lines over the stretch of these last 5 games have all pretty much been within 8 points, excluding their win over Memphis,
Yeah,
which that game was the final score was 123-109. So like
right.
out of these teams that they beat that are, I mean, Atlanta's what? They're the 9th spot right now in the East.
Yeah,
And I don't know what Portland is. I think Portland's 7. So like still beating playoff teams here,
right.
and they're getting it done without Steph, which I think is like the biggest thing to notate because in Steve Kerr's era at Golden State, they've been notoriously bad from like a plus minus perspective since or with Steph off the court. Even when they had KD, like the offense was still not very good or it wasn't efficient compared to when Steph's on the court. And so for them to, squeak out this little 5-game win streak that they're on right now without their best player is pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's huge. And two of the big reasons why, obviously, Poole and Clay, their play has been off the charts in this run. But the two big reasons why they're winning ball games right now is Draymond Green's playing like a defensive player of the year again. I mean, he is timing wise, he is stopping everything that's coming to the bucket.
Yep.
Like everything, he is there waiting for the guy, and he's not picking up defensive fouls. And if Draymond Green's playing like that, it's a trickle down effect. All the guys start playing like that, kind of we're getting to the open shooter, closing out super fast, like staying on the ground when there's shot fakes. Like their defense has been noticeably better in this stretch of games here.
Yeah. Which is it's awesome to see. So
yeah. And the second thing that's changed is their depth has been great. Lamb from the University of Vermont, backup center, he's been killing it. He's looking like a mini Draymond Green out there too. What?
He just works hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
He's
hard worker. And then Ty
running.
Jerome has been hitting shots off the bench. DiVincenzo's figuring out his role there. Pat Baldwin Jr. from the University of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, is murking out there right now. He has been a huge development. I believe that he was their second round pick this year. He's been playing great. He's getting like 15, 16 minutes a game and actually coming in, knocking down shots, playing good defense. And he's a 6'9", like small forward. So that's at a premium. I mean, to get that in the second round of a draft, that's huge.
Yeah, low risk, high reward.
Yeah. So Golden State's starting to position themselves to where if Steph comes back, it's going to be another run at the end of the year. I think all the people who weren't setting the alarms off and were just basically saying stay patient, I think all of those people are getting rewarded right now because you just got to trust that process. That Golden State machine's going to keep running itself, you know?
I mean, there's a reason as to why that core has won 4 rings in the last, what, 8 years? I'll round up here.
Yeah.
But yeah, what Steve Kerr has got going on over there, we all know it. We all see it. The games in October and November, and even basically the games until Christmas to a team like that don't really matter.
Right. Yeah, older teams take a bit to kind of get the wheels turning.
Right. Exactly.
And I also want to state that this run has been without Wiggins as well, a key contributor, key defender. So that's another thing to keep in mind. When he gets in the lineup, they're going to even be better. So,
right. Yeah, agreed.
Staying in the West here, another player who's been on kind of a tear, LeBron James, 30 plus points in 10 of his last 11, including a 47, 10, and 9 game on his 38th birthday in a win, as well as the game following a 43, 11, and 6 performance over Charlotte.
Yeah, with a nasty reverse.
The Lakers have positioned themselves pretty nicely here without AD. They're like 6-5 in their last 11 right now, and they've just been playing pretty all right basketball. I'm
That's all
not
you
saying they're a playoff team, but we just got to give them a little bit of respect for how they've kind of turned this season around and position themselves to be in a play-in contender.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully AD comes back and they can at least try and make a run at the play-in tournament and make things interesting. So
Right. Speaking of players injured in the West, bummer news in New Orleans right now. Zion had a little hammy strain. Is expected to miss multiple weeks according to Woj. You got an MRI today. We'll see what happens. But tough blow with BI out. It's going to be on CJ McCollum to really carry that New Orleans squad, and they're right now at third in the West. So
yeah, I think they'll be all right. I would assume they're erring on the side of caution with the hamstring, given their current position
yeah,
in the West right now. Like, yes, the Warriors are in ninth and they're only 4.5 games out, but I mean, they do have a little bit of buffer here.
true.
So, not saying that they can afford for Zion to sit for the next, 20 games necessarily, but I think they'll be able to at least maintain where they're at right now, maybe drop a slot or two, but nothing. I don't think it's anything to worry about as of right now.
Yeah, I agree. They're so deep that even some of the guys on the bench could be formidable starters. You
Yeah.
know, like they have enough wing depth and depth in the front court that I just think a Zion loss right now isn't the worst thing in the world. Obviously, it sucks, and you'd rather have him out on the court, build that chemistry with CJ. But they
Is
have
BI
Jackson
to
Hayes.
come back before Zion returns?
I think Bi will be back. He's already in the process of ramping up. So, but yeah, Larry Nance Jr. has been playing great basketball off the bench. He can come in at that four spot. Jackson Hayes has been playing great. They could even go small and start Najee Marshall again. Like there's a lot of options right now, so I'm not too worried. And Willie Green's just been a great coach. He's been plugging in guys wherever need be, and they still are winning games. So yeah, I'm not too worried about them.
No, not at all.
Um, Moving on to a couple of teams we are worried about. I'm going to start with the Celtics because I have a feeling Milwaukee's going to go long. There's a lot to talk about there. Um, Not everything is going crazy well in Boston. They're 5-6 in their last 11. They're still at first in the East, but with the Nets surging on their 12-game winning streak, it's not looking great right now in Boston. And they are healthy, like everyone's playing. I'm not sure why they are struggling the way they are.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't caught many of their games as of late. Um, like a team like that going on a slump just doesn't make any sense based off of how deep they are,
Right.
how good their system is. I look at it kind of how I look at Golden State, but in like vice versa. Whereas like this team was in the finals last year, they have a lot of key guys on the roster that were on that finals team. They only made improvements this offseason. Get your loafs out of the way now. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
And it could be a thing where they're just coming back down to earth. They were
Yeah.
unconscious from
Yeah, they
deep.
went. Yeah, agreed.
So it could just be a crazy leveling out.
Yeah.
And it's not like they're losing to really bad teams. I'd be a bit worried if they were going down to Orlando and getting whooped and going up to, Detroit and getting whooped. But they're
Right.
losing to the Clippers. They're losing to Memphis. They're losing, like these are teams that are going to be in the playoffs. I'm not crazy worried about it. But I would say if this continues, if they go on another 10 game stretch where they're maybe at 500 and all of a sudden they drop down 2, 3 spots, Panic might start to set in.
And I could totally see that happening. However, if it's me, right, I'm not worried. They got off to a really slow start last year where
Yeah,
people were having the same sort of rumbling saying like what's going on? Have the wheels fallen off? Is the two ball handling dominant guards not it, or guard and small forward, or however you want to swing it. But I mean, they started off very slow last year. They're seeing the polar opposite right now with how hot they started. It's just I don't think this is anything to harp on as of right now.
yeah,
Now if we're getting back together here in a couple weeks and they're sitting at 26-20, then it's a different story.
yeah, big time.
They're still 14 games above 500. I don't think it's time to hit the panic button yet.
Yeah. Might be panic time in Phoenix though. Uh, they have looked really rough. They're down to eighth in the West right now. They are 4-6 in their last 10. They're at 20-18. Booker's been hurt. Chris Paul is just fallen off of a cliff. No pun
Butler.
intended, Cliff Paul. He's averaging 13 a game with like 8.7 assists. But I was at the Christmas game. I I've watched a bunch of Phoenix games. This isn't the Chris Paul from last year. He's not affecting the game the way he did in the last couple of years. And if I'm Phoenix, I'm worried because not only is your best player out, but you still have Jay Crowder sitting there not playing games. Landry Shamit's the only guy on this roster that's playing actually well. Mikal Bridges has been on a slump. DeAndre Ayton has looked like shit. Like I might have to get Double D back on the pod and go through what's going on in Phoenix because it is not good.
No, I'll be curious to see if they make any moves at the trade deadline.
So when I talked to him, he mentioned a couple of really nice names that actually could work in Phoenix, and I'll name off one of them. But Eric Gordon from Houston, their biggest contract on that Houston Rockets team. He's not. They're not winning games. He's kind of just the only veteran in that locker room. Phoenix could use a guy like that, like a ball dominant guy who's not afraid to shoot.
Yeah.
Like I was blown away at that suggestion. I thought that was a brilliant call on his part.
It's a deep cut.
I don't know how deep of a cut that is. It's a six man of the year, but
Yeah, but to try and bring in somebody that isn't afraid to put up 10 to 15 shots, even as a
right,
six man, that's, I
right.
mean, for a team that seems to struggle to get that fire lit right now, it'd be a good match.
Yeah, I liked that. Um, Obviously, there's a couple other like 3-and-D guys that are deep on other rosters. Maybe a Robert Covington if he's not getting a ton of playing time still in LA because he's like the ninth or 10th guy on that roster, and he could be the fourth or like, he could be starting on another team realistically. But yeah, I won't talk too much about Phoenix because, like I said, Double D was on the last couple episodes, and we went in full detail about that. And then I want to round this out with our home team, the Milwaukee Bucks. They have not looked like the championship contender that they looked like at the beginning of the year. A lot of that has to do with, missing Middleton. He's been in and out of the lineup. Drew Holiday's been in and out of the lineup. So it's tough to win ball games when your second and third options aren't playing. But it's more than just the second and third option. What you're seeing right now is a lack of 3-point shooting. Um, Basically just a lack of offense outside of Giannis in general. But also wing defenders, specifically the 2 and 3. Um, they're just struggling, and they're 4-6 in their last 10. They're still third in the East, so they're still right there, but it has not been smooth. Um, They're 23rd in that offense in the league. Joe Ingles is kind of starting to figure out his spot. I like him as a facilitator next to Drew Holiday, but I'm not depending on Joe Ingles at the age of whatever, 32, 33, whatever he is, to come in and be like the fourth or fifth option on this team. I still think there's room for improvement. KZ, I asked you if you could get together a list of guys that you think the Bucks could benefit from. I have a couple myself here. We want to run through this.
Yeah, we can do that.
Cool.
Do you want me to go first? Or do you want to go first?
Yeah, why don't you start it off and then I'll give you one and we can just kind of go back and forth here.
All right. So I kind of like broke this up into to be traded. Someone I thought that was interesting that I saw like rumors about. Like obviously these are all just like hypotheticals, let's say. Possible pickups and then possible pickups that, in my opinion, are just not realistic.
Right.
So, I mean, really, with the money issues that the Bucks have, none of these are very realistic. So
None of them. Yeah.
it's all ifs, ands, or but. Well, just ifs. But to be traded, I saw something about pitching Grayson Allen, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
He does come with a tradable contract that would free up some cap space and isn't so much that another team wouldn't be like interested in it if they wanted someone, who's a consistent 39% three-point shooter. He's having a career season on, I think, rebounds. So, like, he's looked good. His points are slightly down from last year, but it's someone that we could pitch to free up some cap space.
Sure.
One of the possible pickups I saw, and I'll start with what I thought was, I guess, one of the more interesting ones was Kyle Kuzma.
Oh, from Washington. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, like hitting on that offensive struggles that we've had, he's averaging 21 or like almost 22, points a game. He's doing well. So he'd bring that extra, scoring presence to the team. He's a young guy. He's 27 years old. So, like, I think I read that, like, basketball players' primes tend to be from, like, I think it was, like, 24, 25 to 32.
Yeah.
I saw, like, that's where you want to get him. So he's, like, right in that middle area. He's young, but he brings a veteran status, having won the 2020 chip with the Lakers. And
Right.
he played a part in that, like, I think a fairly decent part in it.
Yeah, he hit a game winner on the run there against Denver. So,
he would be a good pickup. But, I mean, then on the back end of it is he's making $13 million this season. His contract's up, and he's going to ask for something over 20, which,
yeah.
I mean, it's just going to be like, all right, we'll get him for the end of this, and then we'll risk losing him. So,
and correct me if I'm wrong, but Grayson Allen's contract is right around 12, right?
It's 8.5.
Okay. Is it 12 guaranteed next year?
I'm not sure. I didn't get that into it, but
sure. But either way, I mean, you're only $5 million off. Obviously, you'd have to pitch another contract, but it's doable. I mean, we have Serge Ibaka's contract just sitting there not doing anything, and a couple other guys you could pitch with that. But I like that. I like that a lot. And that's a young guy that maybe you don't sign him in the offseason, but maybe you just use him. Not saying Washington would trade him, but if you were to be able to get him, he would definitely add to this roster.
Definitely.
I mean, it just adds to a guy that can spread the floor. Like,
right.
For as tall as he is, because he's 6'9", 6'10", like, handles the ball well. And
he can defend, too.
He can defend pretty well. Yep. And, I mean, he can space the floor. He doesn't need to sit on the elbow. He can hit threes. He ain't afraid to shoot them. That's for damn sure. So, I mean, I think that's a really good call out for somebody that the Bucks should be looking to trade for. Because, I mean, getting him at the trade deadline would be a perfect opportunity for him to come in, play 15, 20 games off the bench. Don't start him right away. Let him get his let him get acclimated. I mean, that's a huge threat to bring into the postseason.
Right.
I can hit on two more here quick if you just want me to highlight some of, I guess, or two or three more here. You know what? Let me just go for it. So, in that Suns thing, I saw Jay Crowder as a potential, Suns want to get rid of him. Probably he's not playing, he's just wasting. I don't even know if he's got a roster spot. He has to. So like he's just sitting there doing nothing. And he's a defensive minded player that the Bucks need with a play style, similar to PJ Tucker, who
Right.
played an instrumental role probably in winning the championship. So, like he'd be a good defensive minded asset, but
guy. That's exactly what this league is. The good teams are built off of good 3-and-D players.
Yeah.
And that would be a good asset to bring in. But the kicker is he has to start. That's why he's not playing in Phoenix. He's not starting.
I mean, in my opinion, there'd have to be some negotiation there. You can't just be like, "Oh, I haven't played this entire season. I'm immediately gonna start." Like, nah, dude. Yeah,
if that was the case,
you got to earn your role.
Yeah, no, and I completely agree. But if that's a logical conversation to have, but that's not necessarily something that's on the table right now because
it wasn't the starting role in Phoenix that was the problem. It was that he wanted an extension and they didn't want to extend him.
Huh.
They didn't want to match the number he was looking for an extension.
Don't play at all. Like
it is kind of shisty. I also looked at Jay Crowder. My only grievance with him is he hunts his shot a ton, and especially in the playoffs. Like he's a super streaky shooter. I think he only shoots like 35 or 36% from three, but it's streaky on pretty high volume. And I don't know if the Bucks necessarily need a guy who's hunting his shot actively. I think they need more of a guy who's just going to be catching and shooting and playing within the offense. I think Phoenix ran into the problem on their run last year that Jay Crowder was taking 7, 8 threes a game. And in a lot of games, he was only hitting one or two. So it kind of deflated them at times in the playoffs, especially he disappeared in that Mavericks series in the back three. So I also looked at that. I liked it. I like his grit in that PJ Tucker sense where he's not afraid to get in some guy's face, get it teed up, whatever. And he's a great defender at that 3.5 spot where he can guard basically 2 through 5. I like that ad, but just the offensive side of it, I was a little hesitant, and I didn't put him on my list for that reason.
That's fair. Another one that I saw was Bogdanovich.
From Detroit.
Yeah, from Detroit. Now, I know the Bucks were interested in him at the end of last season. Just didn't end up working out. And now there's rumors between Detroit and LA about making a trade. And if the Bucks could step in there and, offer something, it would significantly improve the offense, adding a guy once again who's putting up, 20 points a game, shoots 40% from the three. Like it's good. But then we're just back to the problem of, I think he's making 19.3 million this season.
That's the issue is his contract is like pretty fat.
Yeah. So the Bucks would have to give away some depth, probably have to give away some draft stock. And I mean, just do those two things to, keep that core group of players. Cause
yeah.
I mean, if you're not going to trade away one of like the key guys for another guy, that's just going to probably do like the same thing. It doesn't help you in the long run.
Yeah.
And then I guess finally, I didn't scroll far enough before I said the most interesting one. The most interesting one I saw was Colin Sexton, which was very interesting. And this is pure
hypothetical,
like very rumory, but they're saying that, and it kind of touches on that point that Utah isn't doing well and they're on the decline. So the thought would be that the Jazz would just be looking to flip him for some assets, basically.
Yeah.
And in the future, the Bucks could be interested. Maybe not before the trade deadline, maybe not this season, but he's another guy that's a guard capable of starting alongside other key pieces.
Yeah.
And good ball handler, good scorer, good passer. And he's only 24 and he's under contract for several seasons. So he's locked in at that 16.5 million he's making.
Yeah.
So you would have that guarantee for I don't know how long his contract is, but
I like that.
You don't have to pay him.
Yeah, I love that. And I obviously it's probably not doable in season, but it would be more of an off season trade. But you bring in a guy that's young, build around 40% from three, and that's the kind of guy that honestly, I know he makes a huge difference. I know he's the best guard defender in the entire league, but that's a guy. If I'm looking to get rid of Drew Holiday at some point because he's starting to age, he's starting to not be as efficient on the offensive side. That's kind of a great 1-for-1 because Colin Sexton, obviously 40% from three. The guy averages like 23, 24 a game, and he defends all game. No matter who's in front of him, he is in front of that guy, hand in his face, like
up and down the court.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a 1-for-1, but that is as close of a 1-for-1 as you could get with that. So I like that quite a bit. And the contract is doable because I don't think Drew Holiday makes less than Colin Sexton. I'm pretty sure his contract.
Oh, hell no, he makes a bunch.
Is it 22 or 23 mil or something like that?
Hold on, let me look.
Yeah, that's a really good
25. Yeah. So either way, I mean, that could work. But that would be a off-season trade. That would not. There's no way Milwaukee gets rid of Drew Holiday this season. But did you have any more you wanted to go through, or do you want to hear mine? Because I went a totally different direction.
I'll listen to yours, but actually, you know what? So Drew Holiday's contract is 4-year, 134 million, almost 135. So it's saying like the average is closer to 33.
Jeez.
So yeah, he makes a fucking shit ton. A lot more than Colin Sexton, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We have a lot of cap space with that, a trade like that. But yeah, all hypotheticals. But no, go on. I want to hear what you guys say.
So as I touched on earlier, I think one of the biggest struggles has been the outside shot. And we, as you mentioned, don't have a ton of cap space. We don't have a ton of room to work. So I looked at a lot of the lower side of things, lower contracts, guys you can get at mid-level exceptions, guys you can get at 2-3 mil a year. You could basically trade any one of your young assets, whether that be Jordan or Beauchamp's been playing pretty good. I'm not throwing Mamu's name into that, but you get where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
The first one, Savai Mikhailiuk from the New York Knicks, 6'7" wing, 40% three-point shooter. This is a guy that maybe might be your 8th or 9th spot, maybe 10th or 11th, but he still can come in, space the floor, and hit shots. I mean, that's all they need right now is they just need guys that can come in and hit shots because Pat Connaughton's not been playing excellent basketball, especially from deep. Grayson Allen, he's not your guy. I just think if you bring in, like I said, a 9 or a 10 spot on the roster, someone who can just give you a little bit more room to breathe in some of those non-Giannis minutes, that'd be a crucial pickup. And Mikhailiuk, he is that kind of guy, and he's had years when he was in Toronto where he averaged like 42, 43% on high volume 3-point shooting. Granted, they weren't great that year, but he still has been proven to knock down shots in the NBA. So that was my first guy. And his contract was about 2 mil, something like that. So it's doable. And I had
someone like listed way down on my list from the Knicks as well, Emmanuel Quickly.
They are not going to give up Emmanuel quickly. Unfortunately, he is.
Never know.
Oh, he's a huge piece in their core. There would be. There's a couple of guys on the Knicks. So here's the thing: if you look at that Knicks roster, they're not playing a ton of guys. We could actually go out and get a D Rose if we really wanted to.
He was on my not so realistic.
Yeah, that would be more. It would be way more realistic than Emmanuel Quickly. Quickly is a huge piece, and he's super young still.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like Grimes, Toppin, and Quickly. Those are kind of their three young pieces that they're building around. My second player on the struggling Phoenix team, a guy who's won a chip. He's shooting 49% from three this year. Damian Lee.
That
On a really, really nice contract. It's like 2 or 3 mil. He could come in and be like a 7 or 8 on a roster and really help things. Because he's kind of a Derek White type of player where he gets that first pass and he's gonna pass it to the next guy. He's a great extra pass kind of player. He's a great offensive piece that a team like Milwaukee with a Bud offense that's very fluent, very ball movement heavy, he'd be a great fit. And obviously he's a wing. He's good size. He can guard multiple positions. And like I said, he's got championship DNA. So I thought that also could be doable for Milwaukee. You could maybe even package a player or two and try to get Jay Crowder in that trade. But my last guy, a twin, Cody Martin from Charlotte, 6'7" wing, obviously twin brother of Caleb Martin, shooting 39% from three. He's got a knee injury right now, but this could be a guy where Charlotte's looking to dump players. Who's to say we don't get him in some sort of like minimum contract? And he's young, 24, 25 years old. He can play defense, guard 2 through 4. Like, wouldn't be the worst pickup. Definitely not as valuable as a Damian Lee would be, but still another body to have, another good rotation guy to have. But Zach, do you have anyone that comes to mind?
No, not off the top of my head. You you and I talked offline about a Middleton for Levine straight up, but that's not obviously doable with contracts.
Or would I do it? Middleton's 10 times the NBA player Zach Levine has been in his career.
Yeah, I mean it's fair. It's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all I got. For the second week in a row, I don't have any trivia, boys, so I'm sorry for that.
We can manage.
KZ, you got anything else on the Bucks?
Like just anything or like trade wise? What are you talking about?
Anything? Just what's
No,
on your
not
mind?
really.
No?
I think this is the first time that we've all sat down since the end of the World Cup, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about that messy win? Totally derailing the basketball conversation.
Hey, no, it's all good. Let's talk World Cup. That was awesome. Shout
That
out to
was
Messi.
quite literally the greatest World Cup game anyone has ever seen.
Oh yeah.
So I just want to say that we witnessed total greatness.
Yep. It was nuts. I don't often, but I had to throw the notifications on mute for like 45 minutes because I didn't want to hear it from anybody else. So, which was honestly, that was the coolest way to like watch a game of that stature, just because like I'd get updates from like buddies from work or like my mom and dad like throughout the first half and like towards like the back end of the second half, and we were obviously streaming it, so we're like slightly behind cable and stuff like that, and I was just like I can't do this anymore. Like we're invested in what's going on and like the greatness that we're witnessing on this screen, so I had to mute it. And honestly, that was the best way to watch a game like that, because then you're caught in the moment. Just what's going on is the center of your attention. It was awesome.
Yeah, and for them to do that and Messi to net too in that game, like
Yeah.
perfect way to end the run that he had. And yeah, I mean, I don't obviously know much about soccer. These two guys know a great deal more than me, but you just feel the weight of what that meant to both Argentina and really the like world of soccer fans who have grown up loving and watching Lionel Messi. I mean, I don't know if I've personally experienced like something of that caliber, just where you again you feel the weight of what's happening. Um, I kind of I said it was similar to the feeling I got in that 2016 finals, like that game 7, Cleveland
Yeah.
versus Warriors, like obviously, but at an entirely different scale with soccer being or football being a global sport, not just an American dominated sport. So all in all, it was great.
Yeah, and I think like that sports comparison is like the closest thing that you can put it to, just based off of like not necessarily like LeBron and like that Cavaliers team faced a lot of like adversity with going down 3-1, but this was different because this was the one thing in Messi's career that he like hadn't won, and it's the biggest tournament for that sport.
Yeah, and I was only comparing stakes. I obviously completely different notion when it comes to like the storylines and everything.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, just brilliant. Like it was a lot of fun, and it was a lot of fun to watch the U.S. men's team go to work. That England game that we all watched together, that was a ton of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a great World Cup. It like comes and goes so fast. It's a bummer that we have to now wait another 4 years, but Euro tournaments are always good, but nothing holds up to the stature of that. It's the one time every 4 years that like the entire world is watching one like set of games or one specific sport. It was so good for the sport to see him win.
Probably wasn't good for the city of Buenos Aires.
No,
They had
probably not.
4.5 million people roaming the streets. It's like 10% of their population. That's insanity. You
Yeah.
can imagine 30 million people in the streets of Washington, D.C. That'd be like the same thing, basically.
Yeah, that's nuts when you put it that way.
Yeah, it's crazy. But that's
Uh,
what he meant, right? I mean, that's to
Yeah.
Argentina. Like
Oh,
I
yeah.
said, to Argentina. I mean, he is the god there. He is a literal walking god.
yeah, it's perfect. It's the perfect. I almost like I selfishly like wish that like he like hung up the boots like right after that.
Yeah,
Like I know he still has like a couple more years in him over in Europe and maybe like a year or two potentially in the MLS, but it would have been so cool like for him to be like, thank you like for everything, but like I'm done. Like I don't need to play anymore.
yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. If he comes to the MLS, I say all three of us get together somewhere and we go watch that boy play.
It's gonna
Yeah.
be a must.
It's gonna be a must. Would you say Messi to Argentina is comparable to me and Tosa? Like what Messi means to Argentina, what I mean to Tosa as a city?
I mean it's pretty comparable. I'm not gonna lie. But
The streets of downtown Tosa were in an uproar when I left.
yeah, I'm sure you couldn't even get into the house when you flew in, so
I just kept saying greener pastures.
woof.
All right, boys. Well, this has been fun as always. We'll probably hop on next week here and talk about some other teams. Maybe the week after, who knows? Talk about some other teams that are struggling, doing well. I'm sure there will be a team that all of a sudden surges and goes on like a 5 or 6 game winning streak, and we'll have to talk about them. So until then,
Part of the NBA. So yeah,
I love basketball. Till then, boys. Cheers.
folks.
Have a good rest of your night, and we'll see you soon.
Sir.